There you go.
There I am.
Probably.
Oh, great. Good morning, everybody. Can we call the Will County Landfill Committee to order? Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dawn, since you are so spicy this morning.
Don't forget the words. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Sandy, can we get a roll call?
Brooks. Can't hear you. Bullock.
Here.
Logan. Newquist.
Here.
Pretzel. Dean Schlattman. Hickey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Okay, let's do the approval of minutes from April 8th. Can I get a motion? Second? Okay,
I'll say motion.
yeah.
Second.
Okay,
Hickey?
motion by Brooks, second by Newquist. And can I get a roll call, please?
Hickey.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Bullock.
Yes.
Logan.
Yes.
Newquist.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And then can we go on to the committee minutes from June 4th?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion Bullock, second Brooks,
Previous Newquist.
previous Newquist, second Logan. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. No, seeing no old business, we'll move on to new business. And I'd like to start with Mr. Fallon, who is here to do the update on the landfill.
Morning.
Let me turn your,
Hang on.
oh, got it.
Happy to be back here to give you guys all an update on where we're at with the landfill expansion. If we can, I've got a handful of slides here, a lot of photos, but if we can, I guess we'll start with this one. So as you know, we've been working on a site investigation out on the landfill property, primarily in the area off to the northeast, where we're considering a horizontal expansion. And the purpose of the investigation is to characterize the geology and hydrogeology and to make sure that it's consistent with regional publications, but also to make sure that it is consistent with what's already been found beneath the existing landfill site. And the purpose of all of that then is to give that information to our engineers and make sure that they have the information that they need to design a site that's going to be protect the public health, safety, and welfare. If we can go to the next slide. I think we've all seen this before, but this is a drawing depicting where we were going to advance our boring locations in, I guess, transposed over a conceptual horizontal expansion concept that we did. So where are we at now? The drilling is complete. If we go to the next slide, please. We have logged and continuously sampled 9 additional borings to supplement that information at the existing facility. We have collected samples for geotechnical laboratory analysis. Those samples have all been delivered to the lab. And actually, since I developed this presentation, we have already received back, I would say, about 75% of those analytical results. We're in the process of evaluating. We have installed 14 new piezometers in water-bearing zones of interest. All of those piezometers have now been developed. Development is withdrawing water from within those piezometers to any sediments or drilling fluids that were residually left over there from the drilling process would get pulled out, and then make sure that we have nice clean water and that the screen is free flowing in the subsurface. So that allows us to move forward now, collecting groundwater data and to do slug testing, which I think I've explained before is a test that we can measure how fast the water is moving in each of those different zones. Go to the next slide, please. I brought some photos here I thought you would find interesting. On slide 5, this is a picture of the drill rig. This is a photo some of you may have seen before if you were at the landfill tour that we did a while back. But that's what the drill rig looks like. If you look on the top right, you can see in this instance, they're using some hollow stem augers to drill down into the earth. Those are hollow on the inside. It allows us to put a sampler down inside and then collect in advance of the augers to collect those soil samples. Go to the next slide, please. This is just another picture of the rig and showing them how they're screwing those augers into the ground. I talked about the sampler. So in this case, we're using a 5-foot split spoon sampler. We call it a CME sampler. And what it does is it goes, this one actually rides in the front of the augers. And then as the augers are advanced down, the sample gets pushed up inside the split spoon. It's pulled out, it's opened up, and then you can see it gives us a nice long core of, in this case, it looks to be a clay that we can then lay on the back of the truck and log the properties of. I think here's a picture of one of our geologists out there describing that soil sample. So everything from how cohesive it is, the density of it, the color of it, and that all gets put onto a paper log out in the field. Once we hit bedrock, we pull those augers out, we put a casing down on top of rock, and then we switch drilling methods to called a rock coring. So this is, if you hang on here, we'll see it on the bottom right of that slide. You can see the core barrel. So that spins real fast down and chews down through the rock, and then it leaves a core of the rock that goes up inside of the barrel. And then what you see there is it's being extruded from the barrel onto a metal tray. And if we can go to the next slide, this is the geologist then logging that rock core. And you can see he's taken it from that metal tray and he's got it put into a cardboard box. And then he's describing the physical characteristics of that rock. And those are all stored right now out at the landfill in a spare building that they have out there. So just for this investigation are out there. Yeah.
Will you turn your mic on, please?
I just want to have a little side
That's not
conversation.
how these meetings.
So how long do you keep these samples?
So we'll keep them certainly until we get the permit for the site, but at least for 5 years.
Okay.
And probably longer, but if they're in the way, then after that point, they can be disposed, I suppose.
Okay. All right. Just wondering how many shelves we had.
There's plenty of room out there in the room. So I mentioned installing the piezometers. I think we've seen this schematic before, but if you look to the right, those are the different water-bearing zones that we targeted in the investigation. So we've got piezometers that we've screened in the upper bedrock. So that's a little bit more of a weathered bedrock. It's got a little bit more of a fracturing to it. Then we have some wells that we've installed deeper into what I call a little bit more competent bedrock. And then we've got some screens that are up in a discontinuous sands that we found up within the till, and some piezometers that are actually screened right within the till itself. We can go on to the next slide, please. Well, this is a photo of the drillers installing one of those piezometers. So I mentioned in the past, it's a PVC pipe 2 inches in diameter. The bottom portion, typically 10 feet, has some slots in it. And then it's built up from there with solid PVC pipe up to the surface. And what we do then is we take a sand and we put sand in the borehole around that screen. We call that a filter pack. And that's what those men are doing in the photo there is pouring a bag of sand down into the borehole around the well screen. And then it gets built up from there with a bentonite seal. If we can go to the next slide, please. On the right side of this slide is the schematic of what that piezometer looks like. So we talked about the sand pack and then the bentonite seal going up. And then what you see at the surface, it looks like what's in that photo to the left. So that's one of the actual well nests that we put in. So the green, the two green things sticking up there are protective covers. They have a little cap. It can be opened to access the PVC pipe so we can go down and take water levels, do the aquifer testing, take a sample if we want to get a background groundwater quality information. And in this particular instance, what we have there are two wells or two piezometers within 10 feet of each other that are each different depths and have that screen in one of those different water bearing zones. And then the yellow posts there are bollards. They're just out there to make sure that the farmer that's out there leasing the property right now doesn't ruin one of those, and make sure that they're preserved. So if we can move on, please. So I talked about water level measurements. This is just a photo of one of our geologists taking water levels. So he's got a tape that goes down, and it'll beep when it hits the water surface, and then he can measure exactly how deep, what the depth is to the water table or to the potentiometric surface from top of that PVC. Go to the next slide, please. I talked about development. This slide's a little bit out of order. I've got a couple to follow that show the development methodology. But one of the things that we do when we're developing those wells, we want to make sure that we get them nice and clear and get any of that sediment out of there. So we take turbidity measurements. So that's what that machine is there. And we're measuring basically the clarity of the water and making sure that we've sufficiently got all those drilling fluids out and that we have clean aquifer water and that the well piezometer is functioning properly. Now, there's a couple ways that we develop those wells. That's fine. We can go to slide 17. One of those is using a baler. So this is about a 3-foot long tube. It's got a check valve on the bottom. We lower it down with a rope and it'll go down and fill up with water, and we pull it back up. The check valve closes and we can extract water that way and bring it up to the surface. It goes into the bucket there. And at the following slide, we have another method that we also use. This is a little bit quicker. Sometimes we'll use a peristaltic pump, and we'll put tubing down the well with the pump up on top, and we can pump water and get that sediment out of the well. So all just making sure that the piezometers we installed are working effectively. Well, we've done a gamut of laboratory tests. We've collected a lot of different types of samples and sent them to a geotechnical laboratory. We're using Midland Standard Engineering and Testing. They're in South Elgin. So here's some of the variety of tests that we've done. These are tests that give us the information that we need to do the different types of engineering calculations to assure that the landfill is going to be safe. Moisture content tests, Atterberg limit tests, grain size analyses, specific gravities, hydraulic conductivities, density, void ratio, degree of saturation, porosity, triaxial shear testing, consolidation tests. So a lot of different tests, and they all have a specific purpose and reason. Question?
Yeah, just a quick question. I feel like I might be missing the point of this. So is the aquifer testing to determine the status quo of the aquifer before looking at what the effects of an expanded landfill would be?
There's two types of testing, two buckets of testing that we're doing here. So we've got the aquifer testing, which we haven't done yet. It's scheduled for the first week of September, tentatively. And what that will do is it'll give us a hydraulic conductivity of each of those different water bearing zones.
Okay.
And what we'll use that information for, along with some porosity and some of these other parameters, is to prepare a groundwater impact evaluation model.
Okay.
So we'll take the landfill design once our engineers have developed that, and then we'll basically place it into the geologic system, and then we'll assume that it's leaking, and we'll evaluate, after 100 years, 100 years after closure, what are the concentrations of this hypothetical plume at the zone of attenuation, which is 100 feet from the waste boundary. So it's a state requirement. We're planning to have that prepared for the siting application. But that's what we do with the aquifer testing data. The other bucket of testing that we do is geotechnical laboratory testing.
Which is all of these.
And the results of those tests will go into the engineering calcs that demonstrate that the landfill will be safe from I guess, from a geotechnical perspective. So
It's not going to sink.
right. So the
it's not going
settlement,
to-
the
right.
bearing capacity of the foundations, we'll do a slope stability. So we'll model, the slope, and is there a chance that there would be a slope failure? And so each of these different tests give us different coefficients and parameters that go into those various engineering calculations.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And Member Brooks, it looks like you have a question as
Since
well.
Sherry asked all the tough questions, mine easy. Take it. What is this word for?
Porosity.
There we go. I got false teeth.
And porosity is a measure of void spaces within a soil or rock. So if you look at a soil on a microscopic level, there's void spaces in between the different grains of clay and silt and sand, and those pore spaces fill up with water, and they have so one is how can water move through those pore spaces? We call that an effective porosity, but also that pore water pressure comes into a lot of the engineering calculations in that if there's, how much is that pore water pressure helping to
You
hold
got
up?
the word saturation right before it. So does it like think that it is? I don't know what the word Sherry's smart than I am.
That would be, I guess a different way to think about that would be the effective porosity. So some of those pore spaces are isolated pockets by themselves, not connected, and other ones are connected to other pore spaces. So it's basically a degree to which those pores are connected to each other, and that kind of is related to the conductivity of the material. Okay. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this is a picture of what we call these Shelby tubes. They're about 2 feet long, a little bit longer to accommodate the where it connects to the drill rods, but there's a hollow steel tube, and every now and then we pull all the sampling equipment out of the hole. We connect one of these tubes to the drill rods. We put it down, and we'll push it down in advance of those augers. And when we pull it up, what we have is a tube that's filled with soil, and it represents an in situ undisturbed sample of that soil. It's very similar to the split spoon samples that we collect, but these are a little larger, and these are required for the laboratory to do some of those tests. So this is a picture of those Shelby tubes that are all packaged up and getting ready to be transported to the laboratory. This is a fairly boring picture, but that's those boxes are full of jars of soil samples that are at the laboratory ready to be tested, mostly for moisture content, but also grain size and Atterberg limit analyses as well. If we go to slide 22, I just have a handful of slides here that just show some of these different laboratory apparatus. This is the grain size analyses and Atterberg limits help to classify the soil. So they predict how the soil will behave under different moisture conditions. If you can see those big rings in the front of I guess, and stacked on the shelf in the back, those are sieves. So to crunch up the material, pour it through the various series of sieves that get finer and finer and finer, and it allows us to get a curve of what makes up the different size particles curves that make up the soils. Next slide. This is a picture of a consolidation testing equipment. It measures the volume change in response to various pressures. This is, again, it just gets us some of these various different parameters that we need for the testing. Coefficient of consolidation. I think you can use this test also to relate to hydraulic conductivity as well.
Perfect. Mr. Fallon, it looks like Member Bullock has a question here.
For starters, I just appreciate how you have been able to take this from this level to this level for us. Because like everything you're saying, I'm actually understanding. So thank you for that. I just have a really quick, these tubes in this picture.
Mhm.
So are they in any order? Like,
They're-
are they in the, like, the deepest to the, or no?
No. So there, I think we did, we pushed 2 or 3 of those tubes at each of the 9 boring locations. And we tried to get I guess a spatial and elevation kind of variation across the site, but we primarily focused for the 15 feet or so below where we think that the base of the liner is going to be.
So what is all that dark red?
Can we go back to the photo?
Sorry.
Those
20.
are, I think they're caps. So
No, with inside the tube?
can we go, I'll keep going
Or
back.
is that just dirt, hands, dirt? Those
Oh,
first ones.
Those 2 are, it's just plastic caps that go on top of the sample, and then we tape around there. And the idea is we don't want the sample to desiccate at all while we're waiting for it to get to the laboratory. We want to.
No, I get the red on top. What's in the middle of it though? Is that?
I think that's just rust. You're saying.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought we had some really cool dirt. All right, never mind.
That's just, yeah, outside of the steel tube. Let's go one more. So this is a triaxial shear test. So this applies stress to the soil samples in a few different directions. And we measure the point at which it fails, and we identify failure planes that may exist within the soil sample. And again, this gives us some more of those parameters we need for the lab, or for the engineering calculations. For the next test, please. These are triaxial permeability testing machines. So I talked about how we're going to do those slug tests, and we're going to measure how water is flowing within those water-bearing zones. What this test does is it takes one of those samples from the Shelby tube, and it forces water through the sample in a vertical direction, and it gives us a laboratory permeability or conductivity of the material in the vertical direction instead of the horizontal direction. So again, it helps us with our groundwater impact evaluation. A compaction test here. This is called them Proctor sometimes, but this will help us to determine the optimal moisture content needed to get the maximum density of the material. Really, when we go to construct the landfill liner, so it tells us how we need to compact the material that we get that highest density in there, and therefore the highest or lowest hydraulic conductivity. Almost done here. So next steps, where are we at now? I'm working to commission a survey of all of our piezometers. So I talked about measuring the groundwater levels. They're not of great use unless we actually have elevation data, because the wells are all set at different elevations across the site. So that will help us to develop potentiometric maps ultimately, and take those groundwater levels that we're collecting and take those to the next level. We are scheduled to go out there, I think this week or next, to take another round of water levels. So we're coordinating with waste management. We're going to do not only our piezometers, but also the piezometers that are monitoring wells that are around the existing landfill. I talked about the slug testing. We're going to be out there the first week of September doing that. We're going to continue to evaluate the laboratory data as it comes in. We're working on boring logs. Those are basically have been taken from they've already been taken from the field notes and turned into a nicer looking digital log. And we're just waiting for some of that survey data to add to those. And then we can move on and create cross sections and all the other surfaces that we need to make for the application. As-built diagrams we're creating. So really we're going to have quite a bit of time here. We're going to have to be evaluating this field data, creating drawings, working on the hydrogeologic investigation text. And I guess, in parallel, we're also working on tweaking the design. So if we go to the next slide, this was the concept that you've seen before of that horizontal expansion area. We have done some stormwater modeling. So we've taken a rainfall event, we've put it on top of the landfill, we've measured how much water goes in each different direction and how large those ponds need to be to detain that water. And we've determined that we have more than enough room in those 3 ponds. In fact, we're going to take, we're working on that right now, is pushing that northern boundary of the landfill a little bit to the north. Can make that pond a little smaller and eke out a little more airspace from your landfill. And we are also working on developing the base grades of that horizontal expansion area. So what the bottom of that landfill looks like. To now, we've just had a flat surface down there until we figured out what the site looks like. Now we're grading in kind of a V-notch design so we can take that leachate that percolates through the waste and get it to a sump location so it can be extracted. So we're taking the concept design to the next level. So that's pretty much my update. We have a lot of work to do. It's going to be, I would say, a number of months before, we really have anything novel to show you as far as the landfill design itself, but
Great.
working away.
So it was a non-boring presentation on boring. I had to. And anyone have questions? I'll get Member Brooks, but go ahead and let me know. Oh, sorry.
Dawn made it non-boring, but since she asked the questions about the Shelby tubing, looked like they were metal, steel type tubes, and I'm curious about the tops that's on it. There's the contents of those tubes. There's nothing in there explosive, can erupt or shoot out, anything
No.
like that.
It's simply just a big cylinder of clay is all that's
Clay,
in there.
okay.
And the reason for the caps is just for to retain the moisture within the sample. So we
And
don't.
where are they stored at? Where do you keep them at?
So we delivered those to the laboratory. So that was the Midland Standard Engineering and Testing Lab
Okay,
in South Elgin. So they take those tubes, they extrude them, they log. So we don't get to log those intervals out in the field when we push those tubes. So they'll take those and log them for us. And then we can go and supplement our logs with that missing data.
Okay.
But then we've called out from each of those tubes various tests. So they'll cut however much of the sample they need from each tube, put them in those machines and run those tests.
okay, thanks, Martin.
Okay, just real quick, were there any changes to the timeline that we talked about initially with when you're talking about tweaking the design?
I would say no.
Okay.
We haven't had a delay in the project yet, so we're still moving forward. It's just, the field, I guess the field investigation did take a little longer than we had thought it would, just based on the conditions, and the drilling was a little slower, but within the larger framework of the project, I feel like we're still on schedule.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you. Mr. Van Dyne,
I think I'm on.
you're on.
Thank you, Chair. There's been a lot of questions about the Shelby tubes and that. My question is, for the initial collection of data from the bedrock and the soil, what kind of depth are we talking about?
Well,
At the various sites, at the various locations? It doesn't seem to me like we're going very deep.
pretty deep. I think we were down 140 feet. I
Okay,
think it's
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. My second question is, when we come to drilling for the depth of the aquifers, how deep do we go there? And once we do reach the aquifer, is there any chance that the county could utilize some of that water?
So there's what we call it the uppermost aquifer. So that's defined by the state. The first unit above or below the liner that has a conductivity of greater than 10 to minus 3. I don't recall exact definition, but the existing landfill, that's the permitted uppermost aquifer at that site. So we're assuming that that's going to continue to be the permitted uppermost aquifer at the expansion site. So we've gone down and we've characterized that uppermost aquifer, we call it, across the site. Once we develop the landfill, those are going to, all these well locations are going to be abandoned to make way for construction. And then there will be a new monitoring network that will be put in around the landfill. And I guess I don't, it's an interesting question. I don't know why the county would want to use them for water, but they would be, are you mean for monitoring purposes?
No, well, I know as a county as a whole, we're always concerned about our aquifers drying up. And I know it's probably not optimal to be trying to get a water supply from a landfill, but I was just curious if that's ever been considered. Is it out of the question?
That would be out of the question.
Okay.
Yeah. You would, if you were going to install a water well, it would be a much larger diameter and it would need a pump down it and.
Right. Well, I just figured since we're drilling and getting into the aquifer, if that would be something the county would consider to drill a bigger hole to maybe utilize some of the water. But like you said, maybe not.
We're actually restricted by deed. So we have a deed restriction. We're not allowed to use any of the water
Okay.
for drinking purposes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right. Any more questions for Mr. Fallon? Thank you very much for the update.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, it looks like we have a report regarding litter concerns along the roadways in vicinity of county landfill from Director Hartke. Thank you very much for all the work you've done on this.
You're welcome. Good morning, committee chair and committee members, staff. So the purpose of this report was brought up concerns in early April or the April landfill committee regarding litter along some of the roadways around the landfill. So one of the first things I did was to determine what the typical traffic routes are to and from the landfill. And as expected, one of the main routes is from South Arsenal Road from the east, that they travel to Prairie View Drive there and back and coming and out. The other main traffic route is from the west. So it's from 55 taking North River Road over to 53 north to then the landfill. So those are your two main routes of waste hauling trucks incoming and outgoing. So I would say that's 100% of the incoming, and you might see a few empties going perhaps north, but that's rare. And then once I determined those routes, I designated 6 observation points. And doing that, we had then about 18 hours devoted, staff hours devoted to observing waste hauling trucks at those 6 observation points. And their main thing was to note whether or not there was any litter observed flying out of those trucks, or if there was any litter attached or just hanging and blowing, which obviously that would typically become a problem at some point, most likely. And in total, we observed 296 waste hauling trucks coming in and out. And then 78% of those trucks were what we call transfer trailers. So it looks like essentially a semi-trailer has a net over the top. The rest of those trucks were the other 22% were roll-offs or Packer trucks. Packer trucks, your neighborhood garbage truck. Out of the 296 trucks, we had 2 of them we observed litter coming out during that 18-hour time frame. And then another 2 trucks we have observed litter attached in some way, either to the bumper or hanging out of the trailer. So you have 4 out of the 296. That was so that's a 1.35% average. And we had observed mainly 2 trucking companies that we identified that had these concerns primarily. And we had discussed that, I discussed that with the district manager of waste management, these concerns that the county has. And they have increased their communication for one to those waste haulers. They committed to have more of a quarterly communication with those companies. And they've directed the companies to make sure their vehicles are in good operating condition, and that they utilize tarps on all trailers, and that the tarps also be in good condition. You do see some of the tarps sometimes will have a rip or a hole. So they need to be addressing those tears or openings right away. They need to always be deploying tarps properly to prevent release of the litter So if they don't have that tarp on properly, it can be sticking out or underneath, or if they don't have the back done properly, you have the waste that could come out of the back of the tarp. They need to monitor the condition of their tarps, and they need to inspect the haulers, the drivers themselves need to be inspecting their outbound trailers before they go out. If they have anything loose or litter at the bottom, there's definitely a possibility for the air turbulence to cause that litter to fly out. Because typically they don't retarp them on the outgoing trucks. It's just the incoming. And then, so Landfill's got a designated location for these inspections, so the haulers are expected to utilize those. And that if the hauler's not going to comply or they're not going to cooperate, they're going to lose access to the landfill for at least a period of time. So that's been my current discussion with Waste Management. So this is going to have to be an ongoing communication with them to make sure they're following up on it. And at this point, that's where we're at with this situation. We could possibly ask them to do some monitoring of their own and report back to the county is one of the options. There's some other, we could request they increase their communication. There's other tools that we could possibly ask for here.
Well, thank you. That is an incredibly thorough investigation and setting of expectations by Mr. Tomzak with the haulers. And it looks like we have a question here from Mr. Van Dyne.
Thank you. Not so much a question, but thank you for taking the time out to investigate that. I know Mr. Butler brought that issue up before, and I kind of piggybacked off it because it is in District 1. And I'm very, very surprised to see only 1% of those vehicles are actually doing the littering. There is still a ton of litter there, so at least we can at least say that it's not coming from the landfill. So there's definitely another issue, but I do appreciate the time and effort that you spent on this to try to at least eliminate some of the problems.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Member Bullock.
I did all that. I was very impressed with the time you took to look into this. Did you happen to observe any regular little cars throwing garbage out the window while you were there for the hour?
That's one item I didn't necessarily have our staff really pay attention to or to monitor. I'm sure that was possible as well.
It's got to be coming from somewhere.
Member Butler, do you want to come on up and the mic's on here at 10.
So I read that report and I was just questioning a few things on there. So when it says 1.35, that's 1.35 of the percent of the trucking or 1.3.5% of the litter was identified?
It was a 1.35% of the trucks that we observed
That,
had problems or an issue with litter in some way.
so how much of that litter came from those 1.35 trucks?
Well, two of the trucks we saw one piece of litter come out of the back of the trailer, and the other two trucks that were observed had litter or had some kind of plastic or something attached either to a bumper or sticking out of the trailer in a way that could potentially have been some litter.
And how did you monitor the litter? Did you have cameras along the routes? Were people put there once a day just to kind of get a feel for it? Like, how do we know? Because somehow the litter got there. Did anyone notice litter flying through the air, not in trucks, into this area? I guess the point I'm getting at is, I don't really care how the litter got there. The dump's there and it needs to be cleaned up. And what I'd want to see is a report that says, here's how much money it's going to cost to clean this up. And here's some ways that we could do it. Don't we have community service people that we could draw on to say, hey, allocate some people to get out there and pick up that garbage? It's been there for a long time. This road has been littered. Everybody knows it. It's a beautiful country and it looks like a garbage dump. And it happens to be next to a garbage dump. And one can only suspect that because the garbage dump is there, that's why the garbage is there. So, it just needs to be fixed. And I'd like to see another report on how that's going to be solved.
Well, part of that, there's some assumptions, but using here empirical data, actual data of observations to determine what we observed as far as litter and where it was coming from. And so to a certain extent, there's only, if you're having a small percentage like that, there's a certain amount that we can obviously been able to attribute to waste hauling trucks, that 1.35%. So 4 out of 296, we observed some kind of an issue with. But as we know, I see people throwing litter out of their vehicles all day long, or not all day long, but once in a while driving or down the road. So we're going to have the landfill pick up all the litter along all the roads all the way around there when you got a
Yes.
huge number of other people using those roadways that are also littering it. So
I
that
think
was-
this would be a great time to have like an offline conversation about maybe some volunteer groups that we could come in. I know that I initially, like you, Mr. Butler, thought that perhaps it would be a great project for a scout troop or something, but it is a pretty heavily traveled road just from what we saw, witnessed when we were there.
So many times you'll see in different areas where there'll be community service and they'll be picking up garbage in a municipality. Maybe the municipality worked out something where they would get that group. But this is in the purview of the county, correct? This is county property. So
One of the roads is county highway, New River Road's a county highway, South 53 is a state. I think
mean,
South Arsenal might be a
the
village
property,
or city.
the land is unincorporated.
The landfill itself is unincorporated,
And the
correct?
land around it is this,
The
I
part
mean,
of the county parcel is
and
unincorporated.
wherever the border is, where it's county, it should be clean. It's our job.
Well, the
It's
land,
our county, we're responsible for it. And we have a dump there. We know that.
the
There
county
has to
land,
be, that has to be addressed. I get it. I appreciate the resources put aside to watch trucks and see that only 1.35% of the trucks are actually allowing the garbage. But that still hasn't answered the question of where the garbage is coming from. And it just seems suspect that there's a dump there. And there's a tremendous amount of garbage. And
Right.
the farmers are outraged that all this garbage is flying around on their properties. And so, we're just gonna, in my opinion, and no offense, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but more has to be done. There has to be a solution.
if you go to the county parcel, the county property, the landfill is there, very active, cleaning up the litter on their parcel. If you look at Prairie View Drive, that's actually a road that's actually a private road, but that's designated to access the county highway department facility there in Wilmington, as well as the landfill. And the landfill does patrol that and does remove litter from that on a very regular basis. So you drive along there, that's litter or free of
Well, that-
litter.
That wasn't in your report. That's what I was looking to hear.
Okay.
And I would not object to putting cameras up along those roads and everyone who litters on that road being ticketed very seriously,
Okay,
fined with a
I think
heavy
that's
fine.
outside the scope of
Yeah.
what Mr. Hart
Well, I'm
can
just
do,
making
but
a
I
statement.
appreciate it. Okay, can
Thank
we
you very
move
much.
on? Thank you. Member Bullock? That on? Oh, I think you had yours on first and you're on
I've
the
spoken
committee.
Before. Take care of Mr. Richmond. I'll wait.
Well, no, Mr. Van Dyne was next, so.
Oh, for the love of God. Okay. I just want to make the comment that I appreciate that you don't want to see the litter. 100%. I get that. Nobody wants to see that. I don't think I think we've made it clear that it's not coming from the trucks. And if anything, maybe a sign along the roadway that says, yes, this is the way to the landfill. However, it is not the garbage dump place for you to put I've seen whole bags of McDonald's tossed out the side of a car driving down 30. Like we cannot control, we've made it clear to the farmers, I think, that the garbage they see is not coming from the landfill trucks. Like they are policing it and making sure that it is cleaned up. So, I know I live by a pond, and after a great rainfall and wind and everything, everybody's garbage comes into the corner right there by the pond. So if I don't pick it up, it just goes back out there and everybody else doesn't care. So unfortunately,
Okay, after a quick consultation with Member Van Dyne, he said that you may go next. So that is 11, Mr. Richmond.
Thank you very much. So I have a question for you.
go a mile north, east, south, or west of that area that you did your survey study under? Is there a higher concentration of garbage in those areas?
I can't say that.
I'll take a wild guess. First off, I'll take a ride out there, but I'll take a wild guess, probably not. I don't think we need another report. Let's just solve the problem. However, we've got to go out there, get the garbage picked up, clean it up. I mean, it's a bad look for us as a county. I don't care if it's our road or not our road or whatever. There's a garbage dump there, and the perception is the garbage came from us. Whether it came from a truck, whether it flew out of the garbage dump, whether people threw it out, I don't care. Let's solve the problem. So I'll take a ride out there myself. I don't have a problem with that. And I'll look at the concentration a mile northeast, south, and west of there. And if there's a lower concentration of garbage in each of those directions, then it's our problem. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. And Speaker Van Dyke.
Thank you. I do believe that the land use department did, like you had mentioned, they went out and looked at the issue that we asked them to. They brought back the information. It was also stated that one of the county highways is 4 miles long, so that belongs to the Will County Department of Transportation. I have asked them to go out. They do periodically and do pick up the garbage as they mow the right of way. There is an adoption of highway program on their website for anybody that's willing to volunteer their time to go pick up the garbage. And that's basically what I wanted to say. The other portion is IDOT, so maybe a conversation with them. But I think as far as the land use department is concerned, they did exactly what they were asked. Now it falls on to the Department of Transportation, and they've always been willing to help out in those areas too. But, you're not going to stop people from littering unless you have the sheriff out there all the time. And maybe I mentioned before, littering we could triple the amount of a fee until people have to pay enough money to where they are afraid to litter. But thank you again, Mr. Harkey, and I think that solves at least this part of the issue. Thank you.
That's great. Yes, that's new information for me. So I like that. And I do so appreciate the time and the scientific approach you took to this problem that we brought to your attention through Member Butler. Thank you very much. Okay, so seeing no other new business, I will ask for public comment. Is there any public comment? Anyone in the public like to comment? No? Okay. Announcements, reports from the chair. There are none. Executive session. No need for executive session. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second, Logan.
Okay. Moved by Butler, seconded by Logan. All in favor? All opposed? Looks like we're out of here. Thank you.